It was 7 a.m. on November 1st, and I was jolted awake by a pounding on my front door that could have woken the dead. Still half asleep from a late Halloween night, I stumbled downstairs, rubbing my eyes, and opened the door to find a woman standing on my porch, her bathrobe flapping in the crisp morning breeze. Her face was a mask of rage, mascara streaking down her cheeks like war paint, and her hand trembled as she thrust a half-eaten chocolate at me. "You poisoned my son," she screeched, her voice shattering the quiet of our suburban street. "I've called the police, and you're going to jail." I blinked, trying to process the scene. The chocolate wasn't chocolate at a lit, was a Brussels sprout, carefully wrapped in gold foil to look like a Ferrero Rocher. I recognized her instantly. Laura Bennett, president of our Homeowners Association and the self-proclaimed queen of Willow Creek. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the absurdity, "it's just a Brussels sprout. A Halloween prank. Nobody's poisoned." Her eyes bulged like I'd just admitted to a felony. "My son could have choked. He could have had an allergic reaction. This is assault." She jabbed a finger into my chest, her voice rising. "The HOA board will hear about this, and you'll be out of this neighborhood faster than you can say violation notice." I'd only been in Willow Creek for 3 months, but Laura had already made it her mission to make my life miserable. It all started when I painted my mailbox. The old paint was peeling, so I grabbed a can of beige, mind you, per the HOA handbook, and gave it a fresh coat. Apparently, it wasn't the right beige. Laura slapped a neon green violation notice on my door, complete with a paint swatch comparing the approved ivory mist to my offensive desert sand. The difference? Invisible to the naked eye. But I had 72 hours to repaint or face a la 100 fine. That was my welcome to the neighborhood. After that, the notices kept coming like clockwork. My grass was half an inch too tall. My recycling bin lingered at the curb 20 minutes past pickup. My garden hose wasn't coiled, just so. Each notice came with Laura's smug smile and a passive-aggressive note about community standards. I tried reasoning with her in an HOA meeting, but she shut me down, rattling off bylaws like a preacher quoting scripture. So, when Halloween rolled around, I'll admit, I let my petty side take the wheel. I bought a bag of Brussels sprouts, some gold foil, and spent an evening wrapping each one into a perfect Ferrero Rocher doppelganger. I set them out in a fancy bowl on my porch, next to the regular candy, with a handwritten sign, "Ferrero Rocher, limited edition." Childish? Sure, but harmless. The kind of prank that'd make kids laugh or at least teach them to check their candy. Halloween night was a blast. From my window, I watched trick-or-treaters grab Snickers and lollipops, a few brave ones snagging the special chocolates. I chuckled, imagining their faces when they bit into a vegetable instead of hazelnut cream. Then came Laura's son, Ethan, strutting up in the flashiest Spider-Man costume I'd ever seen. He was about 12, a good kid despite his mom's reign of terror. He waved at me through the window, grabbed a handful of my fake Ferrero Rochers, and stuffed them into his bag. I felt a pang of guilt, but come on, it was just a Brussels sprout. What kid doesn't inspect their Halloween haul? Apparently, Ethan. I saw him head back across the street to Laura's house, where their porch lights snapped off at exactly 8:30 p.m., per her neighborhood-wide email decreeing when Halloween must conclude. I thought that was the end of it. I popped on a MOVYE and settled in. 15 minutes later, a door slammed so loud I jumped. I peeked out to see Laura storming across the street in her designer jeans and cashmere sweater, dragging Ethan behind her. She pounded on my door like she was auditioning for a SWAT team. I froze, pretending I wasn't home. She snapped a photo of my candy bowl and left, but I knew this was far from over. The next morning, my mailbox was stuffed with not one, but 3 violation notices, tampering with food products, endangering minors, and BHVY or unbecoming of a Willow Creek resident. Tucked among them was a letter announcing an emergency HOA meeting that evening to discuss my dangerous and potentially criminal active VY ties. Word spread like wildfire. By noon, I had texts from neighbors I'd barely met. Some were sympathetic, others bought Laura's story that I was a psychopath poisoning kids. She'd gone door to door, spinning her tale of a near tragedy. I wasn't about to let her win. I spent the afternoon digging into the HOA bylaws and local laws. Nothing banned Halloween pranks, and Brussels sprouts weren't exactly anthrax. I printed out the rules, plus a few articles about similar pranks, including a local news segment from last year praising veggies disguised as candy as safe fun. I was ready. The community center was packed that night, the air thick with tension. I sat front and center, staring down the board table where Laura would sit. She strutted in 5 minutes late, flanked by her loyal minions, Susan from down the street and Greg from the cul-de-sac. Her hands shook as she arranged her papers, avoiding my gaze. "We're here to address a serious violation of community standards," she began, her voice dripping with indignation. "Last night, Ryan Carter deliberately gave my son and possibly other children Brussels sprouts disguised as chocolates. Ethan could have choked. He could have had an allergic reaction. This was an attempt to harm our children." I raised my hand, and she glared before nodding. "With all due respect," I said, calm but firm, "no one was harmed. Brussels sprouts aren't toxic, aren't a common allergen, and aren't a choking hazard for a 12-year-old. It was a prank, nothing more." Her face turned beet red. "It was assault," she spat. "I've spoken to the police, and they're considering charges." I smiled. "Actually, I called Officer Daniels this afternoon after you filed your report. He confirmed no crime was committed. No charges are coming." The room stirred. I checked her bluff. Things unraveled fast. Neighbors started speaking up. Some backed Laura, but more shared their own stories of her tyranny. Emily got fined for incorrect mulch. Mark and Tom were cited for rainbow wind chimes. Mrs. Gupta, a sweet elderly woman, cried when Laura measured her grass with a ruler and deemed it a quarter-inch too tall. Then Sarah, Laura's next-door neighbor, stood up. "This isn't about Brussels sprouts," she said, her voice steady. "It's about Laura bullying us over trivial nonsense. She threatened to lean on my house because my daughter's bike was VY-sible for one afternoon." The room buzzed. Someone passed around one of my gold-wrapped Brussels sprouts, and laughter broke out. Laura's grip was slipping, and she knew it. Greg, one of her allies, cleared his throat. "Maybe this meeting wasn't necessary. This seems like a prank, not a safety issue." Laura slammed her hand on the table. "He targeted my son. This is harassment." But Susan, her other crony, cut in, shocking everyone. "The bylaws say emergency meetings are for urgent safety issues. This doesn't qualify." Then came the bombshell. Tom, a retired lawyer, stood up. "I move for a vote of no confidence in our HOA president," he said. "Per Article 7, Section 3, the board can remove an officer with a 2/3 majority for abusing their position." The room went silent. Laura's jaw dropped. "You can't do that," she sputtered. "Second the motion," called Mrs. Gupta, her voice firm. Hands shot up to ends of them, including, hesitantly, Susan's and Greg's. The count was overwhelming. Laura was out. Her face turned purple. "This is illegal. A conspiracy. I've been president for 5 years, and you side with the guy who poisoned my kid?" Tom ignored her. "The motion passes. Laura Bennett is removed as HOA president, effective immediately. Vice President Greg will take over until elections next month." The room erupted in applause. Laura grabbed her papers, knocked over her water glass, and stormed out, pausing to point at me. "You'll hear from my lawyer. This'll cost you thousands." The door slammed behind her. The next morning, a police car pulled up. My heart raced, but it was just Officer Daniels. Laura had been cited for filing a false report, claiming I'd targeted Ethan's allergies, a total lie. The fine was due law $500. By week's end, her lawyer confirmed the HOA vote was airtight, costing her due law $3,000 in legal fees for nothing. An audit revealed she'd selectively enforced rules against her enemies while ignoring her friends' violations. She was banned from ever holding an HOA role again. Then her employer, a real estate firm, saw a video of her meltdown leak from the meeting and put her on probation. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign went up at her house. As the MOVYing truck pulled away, Laura spotted me watching from my window. "Happy now?" she shouted. "You ruined my life over stupid vegetables." I didn't reply. just waved and turned away. Ethan lingered behind, though. He looked at me, gave a quick thumbs up, and ran to catch up. The Brussels sprout wasn't the crime it was the spark that lit a fed-up neighborhood's fuse. Willow Creek was finally free.